Yo, what is going on, everyone? It's GentooMan here, also known as Rainy, and I apologize. I've been really inconsistent with my uploads as of late, but I do have a absolutely crazy story time for you guys today, so I'm gonna hop into it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Like, this shit is actually fucking wild, though. Like, I'm just gonna say that. Like, this is actually, like, kind of insane to me that this actually happened. So, this story all starts out with a little incident at the movie theater I work at. And it's really important detail that recently in the back room, in the kitchen where we prep all the hot food and stuff, there's drains on the floor, as there often is, so that any liquid on the floor will go down the drain. But recently there's been a really awful smell coming from the drain, and a lot of employees have been complaining about the smell, and it's even caused a couple of them to pass out. And now the interesting thing is it was only female employees that have ever passed out from it, which doesn't seem like that big of a detail, but the more things that happened, it's just crucial to mention that. So bear with me here. And my managers have had people in multiple times to look at the drains and figure out where the smell is coming from, see if they can do anything about it. But so far, nobody has been able to do anything about it. Like, even to this day, it's still there, and nobody is quite certain why that is. So before I move on, I do just want to get into a little bit of history for a little bit, because the movie theater that I work at, we've had a lot of strange occurrences at the building. So I kind of want to touch on a couple of those. So for starters, there's this upstairs bathroom. Like, most of the bathrooms are on the main floor, and there's a couple upstairs as well with the theaters. But there's this bathroom upstairs that was the old staff bathroom. Now we just use the same bathroom as the customers, but it's the old staff bathroom, and it's very old, and it's very broken down and stuff. Like, the stalls are torn apart, and everything's everywhere. They look really old. They look straight out of an 80s arcade and stuff. And from my understanding, because I was brought up there in my tour around the building when I was first hired, I was shown it. I can't speak. And apparently it was closed off, and we don't use it anymore because two former employees were caught having sex in there. So they kind of got rid of that. At least that's the story I was told. But anyways, this old staff bathroom is down this hallway between two of the theaters. And it's the only thing down the hallway. It's blocked off by by things the little rope thing that they have to keep lines in place. Yeah, it's blocked off by one of those, right? But it's blocked off, and nobody's supposed to go back there. And shortly after I was hired, one day I saw a guy walking down that hallway. Now, I had originally assumed that he was probably someone from head office or something, because they would come in all the time and just kind of walk around the building, do what they're supposed to do. So that's what I assumed it was. But being a new employee, I wanted to do my job properly. So on the off chance it wasn't someone from head office, I decided to go check in with them and ask them, hey, what are you doing here? So they'd already gone down the hallway, and I went towards the hallway to go down it. But once I got to the hallway, I didn't see anyone. So I had assumed that they had probably gone into one of the bathrooms, which they weren't operational is the thing. They're all broken apart, like I said. So I walked down the hall, and I walked into the men's washroom to, hopefully find them and tell them, hey, we don't use these bathrooms, and point them in the direction of the right ones. But there was no one in there. There was nobody in the men's washroom. There's no one in the hallway. And there's nothing else in that hallway. It's just that washroom. So, I don't know. I wasn't really sure where they went. And for good measure, I decided to check the women's as well. The women's was in a lot worse shape somehow. There was stuff, all over the place. Both the stalls were knocked over and just, this pile on the floor. And there was no one in there either. So, it was strange that someone had gone down this hallway, and there was just, I didn't know where they went. So I had assumed that they had gone somewhere else. I don't know. I didn't really know where they went, but it was just a little strange. And from that point forward, talking to my coworkers, I've learned that stuff like that would happen really frequently around this building, and it still does. The amount of times that a customer will come in, someone could come in just to use the bathroom, or maybe they'll come in to see a movie, but, when you're interacting with customers, you remember faces, especially because a lot of them stand there, and they talk to you, and, you have a whole conversation, so you kind of remember them, and, there's only really one way they can come out. There is exits in theaters, I guess, but it's weird, especially when you see groups of people coming in, and then only some of them will come out, and sometimes no one will come out, and you just never see people leave the building. It's strange, and there's just a little bit of an uncanny feeling to it, And for another thing, our trash compactor broke a little while ago, and every night we're supposed to bring the garbage out to the compactor and compact it. but it broke a while ago, so we kind of were just piling the trash outside. And one day I came into work and my managers told me like, hey, like the compactor's working, so we're going to have you spend your shift today just like basically dealing with all the piles of garbage. Like just get it all through the compactor and you should be good to go. So I did that. I spent a lot of my shift just listening to my music and throwing garbage in a garbage compactor. But the strange thing is they were all see-through garbage bags, and a lot of them had the usual stuff like, popcorn bags, drinks, the remnants of food, whatnot. But there were some that would just have like strange items in them that didn't make a lot of sense. And it began to make less sense because they became recurring after a while. Like every so often I'd find like shreds of red cloth. I'd find candles, which we had no use for, and we didn't have any in the building. And I'd find bottles of wine, which we do sell wine at the theater, but we sell like little bottles. And these were like big bottles and they looked expensive too. So it wasn't the type of stuff that we sold. When I saw this stuff in like one garbage bag, I didn't really think a lot of it, but I started to read a little bit more into it when I started finding them like more and more. But I mean, I'm always looking for a logical explanation, so it would make sense to me because our theater is near a lot of stores that maybe one of them saw our garbage pile and they started tossing their stuff there, and it was from another store. Like there's lots of different kinds of stores near us, so I figured it was probably just from one of them. And also to this day, so many of my coworkers, and this is just moving on to another like strange thing, is so many of my coworkers will constantly have a feeling of being watched. Like it doesn't matter who it is, but so many of them have talked about how they just feel watched all the time. And I feel it too. Like it's just like there's a strange uncanny feeling in the building. Like you kind of get over it when you're like doing something or you're standing with coworkers and talking, but it's just like when you're standing there by yourself or doing something by yourself, like closing or opening, there is that uncanny feeling that you're being watched. I definitely know what they're talking about. So anyways, back to the present story, basically. A little while ago, my coworker, who we're going to call CJ, I was closing with her, and she decided to tell me earlier during that day that she had put in her 2 weeks, that she was just kind of over it, but the place had been all over the place, and she was over it. She had another job. She was in school, so she didn't really want to deal with it anymore. So she put in her 2 weeks. She had quit. And she had found the motivation to quit on this day because on this particular day, so many people didn't show up. So she was given a lot to do all by herself, which was rather annoying. And I kind of can understand that being the straw that broke the camel's back. But anyways, this is not the story about why CJ quit. So like I said, I was closing with her this night. And as we were working on like doing the dishes, turning off all the ovens and stuff, just getting everything, closed down, we were talking to each other as you do. And she asked me a question. She was like, hey, did you know that this place has a basement? And I responded, I'm like, no, I had no idea. Like, I didn't know this place had a basement. Why does it have a basement? I know there's no reason for one, is what I was thinking. She said she wasn't sure, but she was pretty sure there was one because she was told there was, and she'd never been down there. But she told me a story that one day she was working on the till, and it was towards the end of her shift, and someone came in from the head office and started talking to her. And their conversation eventually led to the guy asking her, like, did you know this building has a basement? And she said, like, no, I had no idea. And apparently from that second on, like, the guy's demeanor turned from, like, nice to really creepy. And he asked her if she wanted him to take her down there. And she kind of said, no, thanks. And then the guy, he left to go see his movie. Head office people come in to see movies all the time. But she told me it made her really uncomfortable, and she was really glad that it was the end of her shift because she got to leave before she saw the guy again. So supposedly, according to this guy from head office, there is a basement. And I have asked a couple of my managers about a basement, if they know anything about it, and they have told me that there is no basement. They've said that they don't know about one, and so there probably isn't one. And so shortly after this, a couple of my coworkers started getting really sick. And it was strange because one day I was working, I was in the back, and this one girl who I work with, we'll call her Wendy for the sake of this video. Wendy was telling us that she wasn't feeling very good. She felt like she had like a stomach pains and felt like she was going to vomit, and that was it. Like that's what was making her feel bad, is she had stomach pains and she felt like she was going to throw up. And so we figured that something must be going around because our other coworker, who we're going to call Emma, Emma had been calling in day after day for so many of her shifts, trying to get people to take them, or just emailing the manager saying she couldn't come in for the exact same things. She was saying she had stomach pain and she was throwing up. I found this out. This apparently what she was saying was wrong. And so we figured something was going around, some sort of sickness that Wendy had caught. So again, there's a perfectly logical explanation here. Like, coworkers are getting sick. It happens. It really does. It's a pretty normal thing. So I had pretty much put all of these experiences just in the weird shit folder in my brain. You know what I mean? Like, there's always weird stuff that happens everywhere. Like, I could probably give you a list of weird shit that's happened at my house. Like, it's weird. It's definitely weird, but it's probably just all random stuff that happens that's, like, a little creepy. Like, the best way I can put it is it be like that sometimes. Like, it really does. Like, shit happens that's just strange. But something happened recently that really kind of made me think that all of these occurrences might be connected. So one day we had gotten through one of our morning sets and it came time for breaks. Now during breaks, it's a dead period. So nobody should be coming in because there's no movies starting. So typically how it goes is the person in the kitchen will go for break first because they got there first. And then once you get back, you're going to cover the till for the person who is on till, and then they'll go on their break. And I was in the kitchen this day, so I went for my break first, and then I got back, and the person on bar, or the till, because it's a bar till, we sell alcohol, they went on their break. So I was just kind of standing there, and nobody was coming in because no movies were starting. Now, people will occasionally come in during these dead periods. It's typically towards the beginning or maybe the end, because maybe they're early for the next set of movies or they're late for the last movie that started. And sometimes people will come in throughout it just to like buy popcorn to take home and shit like that. Like that's pretty normal. People buy food and then leave a lot. So I wasn't too fazed when somebody came in the middle of this break when my coworker was on their break and I was just standing at the till waiting to help them. So they came up to the till and they kind of just asked like, hey, do you mind if I use the bathroom? And that also happens a lot. We have a lot of people coming in just asking if they can use the bathroom, and it's really not a problem. Like, I don't know if my managers have a problem with it, but I'm pretty sure they don't. I know I definitely don't because it's literally just a public washroom. So I said like, yeah, absolutely, go for it. It's just around the corner there. They're like, okay, thank you. And I will note this man was wearing a large red coat. Like, it almost looked like something out of a movie. It was like a long red coat. Now, I wasn't really thinking at the time, but as I'm telling this story and as I've thought about it in my head, it did appear to be a similar red to the cloth that I would find torn in the garbage bags. But again, at the time, I was not at all thinking about that, so I was relatively unfazed. But as I sent this customer off to the washroom, I told them where it was, and they walked around the corner. And I went the same way, because how it's set up is behind the till, there's a little corner. You take this little corner, and right in front of you will be the washrooms, the men and the women's washrooms. They're clearly separated. And to the right, there's a door that leads into the back room. And the back room is where, like, our break room is and, like, where we do, like, food storage and stuff. And I was headed back there because our head office implemented a rule a while ago that they don't want us to have, like, water bottles and drinks and stuff out in front of customers because they think it looks unprofessional. So there's a table back there for all of us to keep our water bottles. And I was thirsty, so I went back for some water. So as I'm headed towards this door to the back room, obviously I see this customer going into the washroom. Only he's going into the wrong washroom. He's going into the women's. And so I kind of call to him like, oh, sir, like, I'm sorry, that's the women's. The men's is over here. But he doesn't answer. He just goes in. So I try again, and I'm like, sir, like, I'm sorry, that's the wrong washroom. And I kind of hesitated a little because I know, like, I could have possibly, like, assumed incorrectly. They could have, like, identified with the gender of female. Like, that could be where they're supposed to go. Like, I could have been wrong. So I hesitated for a second. I started thinking to myself if I was correct, and like I thought I was, because he was an older man. He very much looked like a man. It's kind of a safety concern if he just like goes into the women's washroom, a safety concern, a privacy concern. So I decided to go in after him. So I walk into the women's washroom. We have this little thing we can put over the door to close it in case a male employee has to do a washroom check on the women's washroom so that women don't walk into the washroom while there's a dude in there. So I close that and I go in and look for this guy. And the women's washroom, the way it's set up is it's kind of just like you walk forward, there's a sink area, and you walk a little bit more forward, and there's just this long, very long row of stalls, right? So I start trying to look for this guy, and like under the veil of like doing a washroom check, which I'm still like technically doing, and I check every single stall in this bathroom, and I shit you not, this man is not there. Like, with the way it's set up, there is no possible way he could have gone around me making no noise and just gone back out. Like, it just isn't possible. Like, there's just no way for that to be done. But that being said, he was not in this washroom. That's when I started to get a little paranoid and kind of put together all the pieces in my head of all the things that have happened. All the, like, strange things I've been finding. All the, the people disappearing in the washrooms and not coming out and stuff like that. So it was this point that I started thinking to myself, something was going on here. I just wasn't sure what it was. There's been a few more strange occurrences after that. Like recently I was working in the back, as I do often now, and someone came in who, had their like bag of tools and stuff, and I assumed it was the health inspector who had been in before. But instead of making sure our temperatures were on and doing the regular stuff that the health inspector does, she started looking like under surfaces and, like under the strangest surfaces, like under the counters and stuff like that. And I assumed she was just checking for pests, which she very well could have been. But she started like checking out the walls too, like knocking on a lot of the walls and just doing a lot of like strange checks that didn't really make a lot of sense. So I asked my manager, because he was also in the back, what she was doing there, and he told me that unfortunately he wasn't at liberty to discuss that with me. This one could be completely unrelated, and I could just be paranoid and putting pieces together that don't fit. Maybe he's just not allowed to discuss the searching for pests with me. That's totally possible. Another thing that happened recently is we had a blackout, which was strange because it wasn't snowing and it wasn't raining. It was a perfectly still day outside, so I saw no reason as to why the power should shut down, but the power to the entire building shut down. Like, everything just went black, like, for no reason. It was like 11 a.m., and everything just went dark. And so we couldn't really continue to do our jobs, so we kind of just walked around the building to see what we could find, and we decided to check out the bathrooms, and they had emergency lights in them. Like, there was emergency lights in the roofs that people could still see. It was definitely dark in there, but you could still see. But one of my coworkers, who we're going to call Sam, she went in the women's washroom because the rest of us were men and couldn't. And she told us that the emergency light for the long hall of stalls wasn't on. There simply wasn't one. It was pitch black back there, which could also be unrelated and be like a burnt out bulb or whatever it is for emergency lights. It just seems so convenient to be unrelated to everything else, So unfortunately, this story doesn't really have a good ending at the moment. There's no like conclusion, but I can say I've been talking to one of my coworkers who doesn't work there anymore, but used to. She's actually the girl from the boobs video, if you were wondering. And she told me that she has also seen a lot of strange things similar to what I have, and she agrees that something is going on here. Now, I asked her to actually do this video with me. She said she didn't really want to be on the video, and she would appreciate it if I didn't use any screenshots or anything from our chats, but she's fine if I quote what she said. So to respect her wishes, that's what I'm going to do. But from our chats, from discussing, our working theory is there is a basement at this building, and the entrance is most likely in the women's washrooms. And the reason we think that is, of course, because putting together all of the information from all of these experiences that we've had, it just makes sense. And also, washrooms are off camera. There's no security cameras in washrooms because that's not allowed. But also, the men's washrooms, most of our managers, I think there's 7 managers and 6 of them are men. So there's one manager that is a female who would, maybe take note of this, but she also doesn't work very often. So the one person in authority around here who could maybe make something happen, they probably won't even see it. Unfortunately, it seems like most people who have experiences with this strangeness have quit and don't work there anymore, so it's just not really their problem. Unfortunately, the story ends here for now. That's our theory. We think that there is a basement, that's the entrance in the women's washroom, and something is down there, but we don't know what. Now, I'm going to close this video off by saying that there is a very high chance that everything in this story is completely unrelated, completely coincidental, and I, in my brain, just accidentally made up some weird creepypasta-esque shit that I think is going down. That is 100% possible. I think it's all weird and possibly connected. Yeah, I mean, I think it could be, but it could also just as easily not be. So I don't know. So for the entertainment side, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you're new. You all know the drill at this point. And this might be a little bit of a ballsy request of me on this channel and how small it is at the moment. But if we can get maybe like 100, maybe 50 would be a better number. We'll see how we're doing at 50. But let's put the number at 100. If we can get 100 likes on this video, I'll see if I can do like a vlog of trying to find this basement. Okay, yeah, how about this? 100 likes, I'll do a vlog again, which I haven't done in a while. See if I can find this basement, and if we hit 50 likes, I'll see if I can convince, what did I call her in the boobs video? I think we called her Anna. I'll see if I can convince Anna to do a video with me. We can do a more in-depth analysis, and she can talk about her experiences. How's that, guys? All right, so I've basically done the outro, but that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Later.